The humans marched victorious through the ruins of the Vidian capital, crushing the skulls of the slain beneath their combat boots, as the few surviving Vidian soldiers dropped their weapons and fled in terror. The mighty Vidian Empire had never fought humans before, so we had warned them to surrender or be destroyed, but the arrogant fools had not heeded our warning. Two Vidian merchants, Yaris and Zoltan, sat in a seedy bar on Nexus Station, the bustling interstellar trade hub at the heart of Vidian space. As they sipped their drinks, Yaris excitedly discussed the Empire's plans to invade and conquer an obscure planet called Earth. "I heard these humans are primitive savages, still split into warring nation-states," Yaris said. "Conquering their resource-rich world will be easy pickings for our mighty fleets." The older, battle-scarred Zoltan frowned. "Careful, youngster. There are dark whispers about what happens to those who cross the humans." "Ha! What could a bunch of primitives do against our superior numbers and technology?" Zoltan leaned in close. "Have you never wondered why the Galactic Council leaves human space alone? Why even the ruthless Krill and greedy Zephyr Consortium won't invade their borders?" Yaris looked confused. "Let me tell you a story," Zoltan said gravely, "about the last fools who underestimated humanity's true power. It began when Captain Thax, in his arrogance, led a routine scouting mission into their star systems. Not knowing his choices would determine the survival or extinction of our entire civilization." Zoltan glanced around the bar, making sure no one was listening in before continuing. "Captain Thax was no fool. He made a beeline straight back to Vidian space, pushing his ship's engines to their limits. But it wasn't fast enough. The humans had detected his presence almost immediately." Yaris gulped nervously. "What did they do?" "They sent a single ship after him, one vessel against Thax's top-of-the-line Vidian cruiser." Zoltan paused for effect. "It caught up to him just outside our borders." "One ship," Yaris scoffed, "against a Vidian cruiser. Thax would have blown it out of the sky." Zoltan shook his head. "You underestimate the humans just like Thax did. That lone vessel was more than a match for our best technology. It disabled Thax's ship with a single shot." Yaris's eyes widened in disbelief. "A single shot? How is that possible?" "The humans had weapons we'd never seen before. Energy beams that could slice through our shields like they weren't even there. Thax didn't stand a chance." "So the humans destroyed his ship?" "No," Zoltan said grimly. "They did something far worse. They captured it." Yaris leaned back in his seat, stunned. "They took a Vidian cruiser, intact?" Zoltan nodded. "With Thax and his entire crew aboard, the humans wanted to send a message, you see. A warning to anyone who might think of crossing them." "What kind of message?" Yaris asked, his voice trembling. Zoltan drained the last of his drink. "They sent Thax's ship back to us, with a single human aboard. He walked right into the Emperor's throne room, bold as you please, and threw Thax's severed head at his feet." Yaris's face paled as he listened to Zoltan's grim tale. "What happened during the ground assault? Did Kravax manage to capture any human leaders?" Zoltan shook his head, his expression darkening. "No, he didn't. The humans were ready for him. As soon as the Vidian troops landed on Earth, they found themselves facing an army of human warriors, unlike any they had ever encountered before." "Warriors?" Yaris asked, leaning forward in rapt attention. "What made them so special?" "For starters, they were all equipped with advanced power armor that made them virtually invulnerable to our weapons. But that wasn't the worst of it." Zoltan paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "The humans had also mastered genetic engineering, creating super soldiers with enhanced strength, speed, and reflexes. They tore through our troops like they were nothing." Yaris's eyes widened in horror. "By the stars, how could we have been so unprepared?" Zoltan sighed heavily. "We underestimated them, plain and simple. We thought they were just another primitive species to be conquered, but they had been preparing for this moment for centuries. They had studied us, learned our weaknesses, and developed countermeasures for every tactic we had." "So what happened to Kravax and his troops?" Yaris asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. They were slaughtered, Zoltan said bluntly. The few survivors were captured and interrogated by the humans, who extracted every bit of information they could about our empire's defenses and military capabilities. And then Zoltan trailed off, his gaze distant as if reliving a painful memory. Yaris waited with bated breath, his heart pounding in his chest. And then the humans launched a counterattack, Zoltan finally continued, his voice barely above a whisper. With the intel they had gathered from our captured soldiers, they knew exactly where to strike. They hit our shipyards, our weapons factories, our command centers, everything. Yaris felt a chill run down his spine. How bad was it? Zoltan met his gaze, his eyes haunted. It was a massacre. The humans used weapons we had never seen before, ones that could bypass our shields and tear through our hulls like they were made of paper. They destroyed our entire fleet in a matter of days, and then they came for our homeworld. Yaris leaned back, eyebrows raised in shock. Neurotoxins, gene plagues? I thought those were forbidden by galactic law. Zoltan nodded grimly. They are. But Kravax was desperate. He thought if he unleashed enough horror on the humans, they'd have no choice but to surrender. And yet they didn't, Yaris murmured, a note of awe in his voice. How could they have been prepared for such devastating weapons? That's just it, Zoltan said, tapping the table for emphasis. The humans had contingencies for everything. It was like they'd planned for this war for centuries. He leaned in conspiratorially. There are rumors, whispers of a secret human organization called Bastion. They say it's a collective of their greatest minds. Scientists, strategists, even precognitives. Yaris's eyes widened. Precognitives? You mean like the oracles of Zentha? Similar, but far more powerful, Zoltan confirmed. If the stories are true, Bastion has been guiding humanity's development for generations, preparing them for the day when they'd have to defend their homeworld against an overwhelming threat. Yaris shook his head in disbelief. All this time we thought they were just another primitive species to conquer, but they were really the ones in control all along. Zoltan drained the last drops from his glass. Exactly, and now Kravax was learning that lesson the hard way. But even with all their advanced planning and technology, the humans knew they couldn't win a war of attrition against the Vidayan Empire. They needed to end the conflict quickly and decisively. How? Yaris asked, dreading the answer. Zoltan's gaze turned distant, as if seeing something far away. They brought the war to us, he whispered. The humans launched a counter-offensive that made Kravax's invasion look like child's play, and leading the charge was a figure that would become legend, or nightmare, depending on your perspective. Yaris felt a chill run down his spine. Who? Zoltan met his eyes, his expression grim. They called her the Admiral, a human female with a brilliant strategic mind and an indomitable will. She commanded the human fleet that drove Kravax's forces back to Vidian space, and beyond. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Under the Admiral's leadership, the humans began a systematic campaign to dismantle the Vidian Empire piece by piece. They struck our shipyards, our supply lines, even our colony worlds. Nowhere was safe. Yaris's mouth went dry. He'd heard stories of human attacks on Vidian assets, but he'd always dismissed them as exaggerated rumors. Now, hearing it from Zoltan, he realized the terrifying truth. How could the Emperor let this happen? He asked hoarsely. Zoltan barked a humorless laugh. The Emperor was too proud to admit defeat, even as his empire crumbled around him. He threw more and more ships and soldiers at the human threat, only to see them swatted aside like insects. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. In the end, it came down to a final confrontation between Kravax's battered fleet and the Admiral's battle group. They clashed in the skies above our homeworld, while the Emperor watched from his palace below. Yaris stared at Zoltan in stunned disbelief. A viral nanoswarm, how is that even possible? Zoltan shrugged, his expression grim. The humans have technologies we can barely comprehend, Yaris. They've been developing them in secret for decades, maybe even centuries. He leaned forward, his voice low and urgent. The nanoswarm was just the beginning. Once they had destroyed Kravax's fleet, the humans launched a full-scale invasion of Vidian space. Their ships poured through the wormholes and jump points, catching our defenses completely off guard. Yaris's mouth went dry. And the Emperor, what did he do? Zoltan barked a harsh laugh. The Emperor? He fled like a coward, abandoning his people to their fate. Some say he took a ship and disappeared into the void, never to be seen again. He shook his head in disgust. But even if he had stayed, it wouldn't have mattered. The humans were unstoppable. Their weapons cut through our shields like they weren't even there, and their soldiers. Yaris, I've never seen anything like them. Yaris leaned forward, his heart pounding. What do you mean? Zoltan's eyes took on a haunted look. They moved like ghosts, striking from the shadows and disappearing before our troops could even react. And when they did engage in open combat, they fought with a ferocity and skill that made our best warriors look like children playing at war. He took a shuddering breath. I saw a single human soldier take on a dozen Vidian elites and win. She moved like lightning, her blade a blur of silver as she cut them down one by one. It was like watching a dance of death, beautiful and terrifying all at once. Yaris swallowed hard, trying to imagine the scene. And the rest of the Empire? What happened to our colonies, our outposts? Zoltan's expression turned bleak. They fell one by one. The humans didn't just conquer them, Yaris. They erased them from existence. Every Vidian they found, every trace of our civilization, gone, like we had never been there at all. He leaned back in his chair, his voice heavy with despair. And now they're coming for Nexus Station. I've heard the rumors, seen the signs. They won't rest until every last Vidian is either dead or in chains. Yaris felt a chill run down his spine. So what do we do? Is there nowhere we can hide? Zoltan met his gaze, his eyes hard and unflinching. No, there's nowhere in the galaxy that's safe from the humans. Our only choice is to run, to find some distant corner of the universe, and pray they never find us. He stood up abruptly, tossing a few credits on the table. But even then we'll always be looking over our shoulders, wondering when they'll come for us, because sooner or later they will. And when they do... He let the words hang in the air, a final ominous warning. Then he turned and strode out of the bar, leaving Yaris alone with his fears and the bitter taste of defeat. Yaris sat there for a long moment, his mind reeling with the implications of Zoltan's story. The Vidian Empire, once the most powerful force in the galaxy, had been brought to its knees by a single, terrifying enemy. And now that enemy was coming for them all, a relentless, unstoppable force that would not rest until every last Vidian was dead or enslaved. He thought of the humans, with their advanced weapons and their ghostly soldiers, and felt a shiver of fear run through him. How could they hope to stand against such a foe? How could they even hope to survive? But even as despair threatened to overwhelm him, Yaris felt a flicker of something else deep inside him, a spark of defiance, of stubborn Vidian pride. They had been the masters of the galaxy once, and they would be again. Somehow, some way, they would find a way to defeat the humans and reclaim their rightful place among the stars. He just hoped he lived long enough to see it happen. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.